Good afternoon, everyone. This is meteorologist James Longwith with Dynamic Weather Agency LLC, and today we're going to be talking about Hurricane Nicholas that has now been downgraded to a tropical storm, as Nicholas made landfall as a hurricane, as a low-end Category 1 hurricane earlier this morning in Texas. You can see on our current satellite and radar imagery that area of low pressure circling around just south of the Houston region, with some more of that expansive rain banding further to the east across southern Louisiana, moving its way into southern and even central Mississippi, and even into parts of northern Louisiana as we move into this afternoon, with more convective rain banding across New Orleans, stretching all the way up and towards the Baton Rouge region. But as we talk about Tropical Storm Nicholas, it's beginning to downgrade in towards a tropical storm after making landfall as a hurricane. It's now interacting with some more friction as it moves across land, and also losing some of that energy from those warm ocean waters that are located over the Gulf region, where Nicholas was able to develop into a hurricane right before landfall, as we'll see later on as we move into our video. Now, as we take a look at our headlines, we're going to be taking a look at some of the National Hurricane Center products, taking a look at some of those current watches, warnings, and advisories, taking a look at some of our current storms, along with our tropical outlooks. And then we'll be talking about Tropical Storm Nicholas, taking a look at some of the weather models, mostly focusing on the chance for flooding and heavy rainfall, along with the severe weather threat for today across that region. Now, taking a look at our 2021 hurricane season names, we have started, off the season rather slowly, and been slowly ramping up as we moved into kind of the more climatological max of the season. But Hurricane Nicholas, now tropical storm, was the 14th named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season. As we talk about climatology for this, September 10th is normally the peak of our hurricane season, and we've been seeing that ramp up lately with that slow start of the season, with a lot of the hurricanes and tropical disturbances that we've been seeing in the Atlantic lately. And that's not really, going to be winding down anytime soon. As we take a look at our tropical outlook, we do have two areas of interest. We have a moderate area of interest across the western Atlantic along the eastern coast of the United States, where we have this potential for some tropical development within the next 5 days across this region. And then we also have a high area of interest with a easterly wave moving off the coast of Africa into some very warm ocean waters, in some area where there are some favorable wind shear conditions for this system to develop. Now, speaking of those sea surface temperatures, taking a look at the Gulf Coast region. Look at those, dark gray, maybe kind of brownish colors within that region. 30 to 32 degree Celsius temperatures within that region. Very warm ocean waters. And all these ocean waters within these oranges and reds are above 26 degrees Celsius. And 26 degrees Celsius is around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have really warm ocean waters. And the reason why we see these very warm ocean waters, and why hurricane season tends to be a little bit later on after summer moving into fall, is we talk about specific heat of items, of objects. And basically what a specific heat is the amount of energy that is needed to raise the temperature of an object by 1 degree Celsius or 1 degree Kelvin. And water, because of its depth and stuff like that, has a very low specific has a very high specific heat, and needs a lot of energy to be able to raise that temperature by 1 degree Celsius. So it takes a little bit of a seasonal lag to be able to increase those ocean water temperatures. And we need those ocean water temperatures not only to be warm at the very top of the surface, we need those ocean water temperatures to be at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit, even down to 200 feet below the surface, because with these low pressure systems, it causes a lot of upwelling. If you start upwelling some cooler ocean waters, those storm systems are going to begin to die and choke themselves off. So there's an importance to that seasonal lag, and why climatologically it's a little bit later on in September. Now, taking a look at those favorable wind shear forecasts. Now, that area of moderate chance, we do have some areas of favorable wind shear within this area, less than 15 knots of deep layer shear within that area. If you have too much shear, these storms are not able to look symmetrical, and they start looking more like mid-latitude cyclones that you see moving across the Midwest. And we want those storm systems to have very weak wind shear, otherwise they become torn apart. And then you can see the favorable wind shear off the eastern coast of Africa, stretching all the way across basically the southern Atlantic Atlantic region along the equator area. And some of these areas of unfavorable wind shear may be going to forecast their way into more favorable conditions, and the storm system will move across that. Now, taking a look at the current GO-16 IR satellite imagery, a wide view of the Atlantic, you can see Nicholas across the southern coast of the United States. We already talked about that early on, but those two areas that we were talking about, those two disturbances, you can see those clusters of thunderstorms across the western Atlantic, a very weakly defined, very hard to see area of low pressure within that area. But like we said, we do have some very weak wind shear within that area and very warm ocean waters greater than 26 degrees Celsius, near 30 degrees Celsius within those areas. So definitely favorable conditions for that area of low pressure system to begin to develop. And then you can see that easterly wave in those areas of clusters of thunderstorms moving its way off of Africa and again into those very warm ocean waters and in those areas of favorable wind shear. Now, taking a look at the Euro model, this is 850 millibar forecasted wind speeds. Again, you can see Nicholas across the southern portion, the Gulf Coast region of the United States, going to kind of stall out across the region and move very slowly, as we'll talk about the movement of this system here in just a little bit. And this is going to play effect to some significant rainfall across that region. Taking a look across the western Atlantic, you can kind of see this low pressure system trying to get its act together and develop according to the European model. Something we'll still have to look, and that's why it's a moderate threat. It could encounter some wind shear as it moves further north with the jet stream. And then as we take a look at the basically the eastern Atlantic, you can see that tropical wave begin to develop in that area of low pressure that we could see develop into a tropical cyclone system. And right behind that, another easterly wave moving its way off of Africa, so we'll have to watch out for that for another area of tropical cyclone development and formation. Now, talking about Tropical Storm Nicholas, here's the National Hurricane Center forecast cone for that. That is basically the cone of uncertainty where that center of that low pressure system is likely to move. Now, don't just focus on the cone, because those effects of this, Tropical Storm Nicholas can expand outside of that cone area. Those tropical force winds and the heavy rainfall with Nicholas is going to be well outside of that out of that forecast cone, but this is basically where that center of that low pressure system could move. And you can see right now that low pressure center is just south of Houston as depicted by current METSAT imagery. You can see this basically the sustained winds right now have decreased down to 58 miles per hour, and those are going to continue to decrease as we move through the afternoon, as Nicholas loses that energy from those warm ocean waters and encounters friction. The center of this system right now currently at 999 millibars, moving northeast at 8 miles per hour, and that is moving very slowly, and that's going to play effect into some of the heavy rainfall. Now, Nicholas did make landfall as a low-end Category 1 hurricane, now tropical storm, and you can see some of the impacts already happening right here across parts of southeastern Louisiana. You can see some of the power outages across this region right now. Around 93,400 people currently experiencing power outages across Louisiana. But as we move across Texas, where Nicholas made landfall as a low-end Category 1, you can see 454,000 people are currently experiencing power outages across those areas in Texas in those reds, oranges, and yellow colors near the Houston region. Now, speaking of storm surge, so basically this is the rush of water by the low pressure system, as we'll take a look at a schematic a little bit later on how this basically happens. But for the vast majority, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge is forecasted across this area. But across the Louisiana, Texas coast region, there's a small area of basically 2 to 4 feet along the Galveston Bay region. There's still also another area of 2 to 4 feet that could occur with this low pressure system. And those areas are also still under those storm surge warnings where those 2 to 4 feet are forecasted to occur. Now, why are we seeing storm surge with that? Well, all these tropical cyclones, they are low pressure systems and they rotate cyclonically. And with that, you have the winds around that low pressure system forcing those ocean waters inland within these tropical cyclones, and that's what's creating some of that storm surge. With this system, some of those tropical force winds and those tropical storm warnings are going to continue through the afternoon as the system begins to slowly decrease with those wind speeds, as like we said, is going to encounter friction and lose some of that strength from those warm ocean waters as it's moved across the land. The Weather Prediction Center Day 1 excessive rainfall outlook today. High risk for excessive rainfall across the Texas-Louisiana coast, with that moderate risk extending around that across much of southern Louisiana, even into parts of central Louisiana, with Alexandria, Baton Rouge, New Orleans within that more moderate risk for basically heavy rainfall today. Taking a look at the WPC Weather Prediction Center's Day 1 through 3 quantitative precipitation outlook. Taking a look at some of those orange values right there, those darker and lighter orange values indicating 4 to 5 inches of heavy rainfall expected across this region. And then those kind of more gold values across New Orleans region are indicating areas of basically 7 to 10 inches of heavy rainfall, with some areas possibly seeing some localized higher amounts. Now, as we take a look at our weather models, like I said, I'm mostly going to focus on some of the heavy rainfall. The European model is not doing so good. It's forecasting some of that more heavier rainfall further to the north. Mainly is mostly probably affecting, thinking that more of the forcing is going to be around some of those outer rain bands with the vorticity of these low pressure systems with these tropical cyclones. The GFS model does have more of that heavier rainfall located along that Texas, Louisiana coast region where that high excessive rainfall is. But however, I think the HREF ensemble forecast is doing the best. The GFS and the European model I was showing you was a 72-hour forecast. This is a 48-hour forecast from their HREF ensemble mean. That's as far as this model will let me go. And ensemble forecasts do a little bit better than more of just the standard European and GFS model run, because it takes a control and then it has so many members. Depending on the model, it could be 16, 31 members, where it changes a slight variable, initial variable of the model run, and then it takes the average of that and creates this product right here. So basically, ensembles do a little bit better. It can kind of give you more of the average, leaning out some of those low-end outliers and some of those higher-end outliers. And you can see this is lining up more towards that WPC Day 1 through 3 quantitative precipitation outlook. You can see that nice area, those purple values, 4 inches of rain plus, and then those darker purple values are 6 inches plus within the next 48 hours. And just think, this system is moving slowly at about 8 miles per hour and could slow down even more, possibly as it interacts with some high pressure blocking. That could be allowing for this system to basically just dump heavy rainfall even for another more 24 hours. As you see, as we go back to that WPC, Day 1 through 3, 72-hour forecast, you can see right here, those heavy rainfalls across the southern Louisiana coast. Basically, most of the southern Louisiana coast could see, like I said, those 7 to 10 inches of heavy rainfall. But you can see that widespread area, 2 to 4 inches from those yellows to red values, stretching all the way up to northern Louisiana, central Mississippi, and even into southern Alabama, and even into parts of the western Texas panhandle region, as the system slowly moves to the east and just dumps a lot of heavy rainfall as that system draws moisture up along with it. As those winds move around that low pressure system, you have southerly winds in that eastern right front quadrant of this low pressure system, and it's going to continue to force heavy rainfall across this region with some of the forcing. For the severe weather threat, mostly going to be around southern Louisiana today. There is an isolated threat for tornadoes with this area of low pressure and some of the vorticity that you have with these hurricanes. That is also indicated by the SPC with their Day 1 convective outlook with that marginal risk for severe storms across that region today. Now, I'd like to thank you guys for checking out today's video. Be sure to check us out online at www.dynamicweatheragency.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to his channel for more weather-related videos. And be sure to check us out on Patreon if you'd love to support us. The link is going to be down below in the description. I'm Meteorologist James Longwith signing off. You guys have a great and wonderful day.